Alrighty. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Pam Sari from the Asian American and Asian Resource and Cultural Center. And Gwyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Gwyn Condino. I'm a senior or rising senior at Purdue University in electrical engineering, and I'm an undergraduate student ambassador for the ARC.
Yeah, so welcome back to our Flashback Friday, where we feature our Purdue alumni and their professional journey and also personal journey after Purdue. Today is June 2nd, 2020, and we are with Mr. Daniel Lee, founder and CEO of Kokomo Solutions, that sells and distributes the Kokomo 24/7 Safety Cloud. Hi, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Daniel Lee. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. How are you? Thanks for the invitation. Excited.
Doing good. Thank you for, answering us right away and for, your time in scheduling this interview.
No problem. My pleasure.
I would actually start with just getting to know you a little bit more and your story. You mentioned that you identify as a Korean American. So can we hear more about your story, maybe growing up and just how you identify yourself, where home is for you and things like that?
Sure. Yes, loaded question. So, okay, so I'm Korean American, naturalized citizen of US. That's why I'm calling myself Korean American. But I came to US, to Chicago, is my home now. 30 years ago, exactly 30 years ago, 90. 1990, exact 30 years ago when I was 17. So, senior year high school in Korea, barely, of course, there was an English education in Korea. However, it's not like, speaking English. So when I came here, I downgraded a grade so that I can prepare for college and whatnot. So I went to high school in Chicago, a suburb called Main East, for 2 years before coming to Purdue. And I studied electrical engineering. I actually got in as a computer science. And I don't want to offend anyone, but I thought it was kind of a little bit too easy for me because I was already a programmer, C++ programmer from high school as a hobby. So I always wanted to study electrical engineering. So I changed so-called Kodo. I don't know, it's still same thing, but I did a Kodo to electrical engineering. That's the degree that I graduated. So after the college, I came back home. Chicago has been my home, and I lived and worked out of Chicago based ever since.
Wonderful. I actually would like to ask a little bit about your time at Purdue. I'm wondering if you still remember some of your best memories about the, college experience, what you were involved in, or best memories about West Lafayette that you still just, think about it from time to time.
Okay, I mean, I have 2 kids now, so last year was the first year I actually drove down to Purdue campus with 2 kids. Finally, they grew up. One is 13, the other one is 10, to be able to kind of recognize where they are and things like that. So I was kind of excited to bring them to Purdue. And man, the campus, I mean, it just brings back all the memories. So, I mean, good stuff. Of course, the friends. I mean, the friends that I hang out today, per se, is my social. The closest one is all Purdue. And there are quite a few from Chicago, but when I've been in consulting business for 20 years. Before I start my company, for 15 years, I was in consulting, meaning get on the, airplane on Monday and then fly back on Thursday every week, single week. So I've been all over the places throughout the nation. So whenever I go to New York or San Francisco, LA, Colorado, I always look for other Purdue alum, and they're the one that I meet and enjoy hanging out with. So the best thing I would have to say is, people that you have right now around you will be the probably the people that you will be, hanging out with, for the rest of your life. That's my case. And then memories, the youth, and everything that I, from the stupid things to all the great education that I got. I actually walked into an electrical engineering building with my daughter and son last year. Same door, same that metal door right by the engineering mall, that two-door thing, the corner of the electrical engineering building. Nothing changed. So it was exciting. So everything, everything about campus was life at Purdue was a memorable time. Yeah. And then of course, Saturday, Sundays, again, the friends that I hang out with were, the friends that I hung out back then. So
Thank you.
So what was your journey like after Purdue?
yeah, so for my case, it was a I actually at the I actually did an internship. So at the end of sophomore year, somehow I was kind of those hungry people that I always wanted to do an internship. So I was already wearing suits and ties, and back then there's no intern. There is internet, but it's not like you sign up for like a General Mills. If they come out, you know how they you sign up for the interview is that whoever comes to the store center earliest, sign up on the piece of paper, gets the slot. So I actually woke up like at 4 in the morning, with the suits and everything, and then sign up and wait there, and then you get the slot. So that's how we did an interview. But yeah, so that's how I, was kind of, I did an internship at R.R. Donnelly at the end of a second year. And then, and when I was graduating, I actually got an offer from Microsoft. But me as a 1.5 so-called generation American, I'm Korean immigrants, I had my family in Chicago, my parents, and I'm the eldest son. So it was like hard for me to move again, because they just found their friends in their church that time. So it was very hard decision. So I actually didn't go Microsoft. Ever since, that's actually in a way my drive. I think looking back that I worked for a small company in Chicago, and then I got bored. So I wanted to get into a consulting industry. So I joined like a 500 size consulting firm, and then later PwC. PwC was bought by IBM, so I had an IBM badge for a while, a couple of years, and then finally I kept on applying for Microsoft, and I got into Microsoft. So I worked for Microsoft for about 8 years. That's the longest time with the one employer because I did a lot of cool stuff. So it was so much fun. So I was always in a corporate, big name consulting companies, and of course my English has grown with it. And then about 5-6 years ago, I wanted to start it. I always had an aspiration to be running a software company. And I always heard the news in Silicon Valley about this, all these companies doing it. I'm like, when can I do this? So I always wanted to do that. And so 5 years ago, I jumped the ship, Microsoft, to start my first startup about 5 years ago. And then that actually forged into Kokomo Solutions, which has been up and running just over 2 years now. Yep. And then, speaking of Kokomo Solutions, the name Kokomo came from Kokomo County, Indiana, because I was, again, my home base was Chicago, and my junior, senior year, every weekend I actually drove back to Chicago and spent weekend and drove down. And whenever I saw Kokomo County sign, I felt like, oh, finally almost there. So that's the day that I say, one day I'm gonna use that name. That's kind of funny name. So that's where Kokomo is from. Even though I'm based out of Chicago, Kokomo County, Indiana was our.
Wow. I think that's beautiful in terms of that name reminds you that, hey, home is close.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
love that.
Yeah, I-6090 is a horrible highway to drive at night, especially at night. I don't know how many times I stopped at the gas station and took a nap or sleep actually in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
this next question was actually coming from Gwen. Thank you, Gwen. Gwen actually contributed many of our questions today,
mhm.
and we would like to know what was it like for you to, build a company, um, especially for some of our students or whoever is watching and would like to start that journey, right?
Mhm.
Can you describe a little bit for us how that process was?
So of course it's my opinion. So I cannot say this is the way, but this is how I, and also it must come from my personality too, being, introvert, kind of, quiet, not be in front of the, crowd. So I think, um, as looking back, how what I have gone through last 5 years as running the show is vastly different than, no matter how, what kind of hot shot, big shot of a corporation you become, starting your own business is totally different anymore. So I will have to say, so two things. One, you will have to build what you want to do with big companies. So my opinion, yeah, is build the experience with, from these big corporations or whatever wherever, build the experience, and then wait for the right moment. That could be a year after you start the work. That could be 20 years after. My case, 20 years, 15 years actually, 15 years after. Uh, I was able to do a lot of things on my own because I have done this from Microsoft, IBM, PwC. It definitely helps. If you are trying to become somehow entrepreneur right off college, if I were to mentor you, I would stop you because you don't know what you don't know, and there are so many stuff. And so actually, it's not about you either, about me either. It was actually the people around you. When Kokomo started, for example, co-founders are two other Purdue alumnus that I met from Purdue, and those they have their day job. One is like a high up in the military, and one is AI guru at another company. Without these folks, and then many people whom I met at Microsoft, IBM, he was also helping me. When the company started without money, much of resources, those are the people who will help you, right? Those people, I mean, if you just got out of college, I mean, it's kind of you have same like you don't have much of an ammunition. So I think the career and the experience is not just about you, but also whom you have potentially have met and built the relationship with. And that significant, that's I would say half of the whole business. Wouldn't be able to do this business without these people. And there were at least 6 to 12 people who contributed Kokomo at the early stage. And yeah.
Do you feel like your education at Purdue prepared you well for the industry?
Oh my gosh, yes. That's the one that I mean. Before we start the interview, that's exactly what I meant by I didn't realize what I got, what I went through, and what I got from Purdue before you meet other people. When So I still have a pet peeves that electrical engineering. The I don't know if the lab is still 1 credit. That is a 1 credit. Okay, and it's usually 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. Well, awfully early in the morning, right? I'm like, why do they have a lab in the morning? Anyway, by doing that lab, you will say, oh my God, I don't know if you still use the carbon copy lab book to do this. oh my God, I sound like a so old person, but anyway, all the lab and then all the reports that I did with the Word, you know, back then there's no Word menu. I just learned how to use Excel and Word by just preparing for this lab report for this 1 credit electrical engineering lab. That skill, I mean, it's just an analogy, one example. That skill still lives. I'll have to say, I have not met anyone who's better editing Word file and Excel and graphs than me. And I learned all that from just 1 credit, course. So that's one example. And then, you know, the type of education that you get is, Purdue is known for very practical education than, per se, pure science, I don't know, that may have changed. That definitely differs you. It's a differentiator. You will recognize right away when you start interacting with the other people from other colleges, other education levels, and other, even same BS or MS, whatever you call it. The type of education you got is very unique and it's very powerful thing. And I recognize right away after I start working at a big firms. Yep. So.
What other skills do you feel like we upcoming graduates need the most in the industry after graduation?
I will say, did you say skill or the trait, or what would you say?
Yeah, so I guess like skills is in like what we've learned in classes, but also just like what you might need to be successful in the industry.
Yes. Okay. I don't want to go too vague. At the same time, I don't want to go too tactical. I mean, vague one. Vague kind of answer to that is, I think the trait that, the ability that by the fact that you graduated from Purdue is probably because you were able to finish that 1 credit, WE lab. That's 6:30, or I don't know what time that was. That actually says a lot of things. You woke up early every week to attend that. That's surprisingly more important trait than you knowing what you learned from college. So I always wanted to study electrical engineering, the Kirchhoff's law, all those things. I still remember, how math translates to electrical engineer, the parts, the phases and all that. I still remember, but bluntly, I never used it. I never use it. It's useless unless you get into that specific field, right? Normally, it's of course everybody will be different. If you are going to go MS, master, and PhD, of course, But if you just go into industry, I don't think it's the technical, tactical things that you learned will differentiate. It's just just like many people say, it's how you survive, how you went through this. Trait-wise and also knowledge, of course, but I cannot say pinpoint, you gotta know this and to be able to succeed in industry. You learn to wake up, you learn to fight, compete against, other folks. That trait will never die. You will have that, and, if you're continuously doing that, you have to do it. Otherwise, you're not becoming, you don't move up or, or that. So you have to continuously do that. So yeah, so that's, I will have to say that's the thing. And I learned hard way of, from Purdue, in a sense, it's not easy school to get out, get the degree off. So I think it's a very, something that if you work towards that milestone, once you get over it, you will realize. But it's not like up to the education. I got if you stop studying after second grade, sophomore year, doesn't mean that you went halfway. You gotta get over the hump, and whatever it takes.
Wonderful. Thank you for that explanation. And I think I'll carry the question to Kokomo Solutions. And did you always start with, did you start in the beginning with Kokomo 24/7? And if I read correctly, it actually started as a tool, cloud-based technology to help improve school safety.
Yep.
And I read also the mental health issue,
Yep.
bullying, public safety.
Yep.
I thought that was really interesting. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So when I have a domain expert experience, domain experience in public safety from the experience at Microsoft. I was a chief architect for NYPD Counterterrorism Bureau. So I was the geek overseeing the whole program. And I actually had worked with the FEMA creating a mobile application. It's 10 years ago about, the encrypting the resume into a Windows Mobile back then. Anyway, there was no iPhone back or Android. So I always had that this public safety domain experience. And then, so that's how I was already knew what to do, that's how I was able to identify the opportunity. Okay, there goes another example. I didn't go through that kind of a build-up experience, you wouldn't know A from B. You cannot tell the difference. That experience will give you the insight that, oh, this is something, doable, something marketable, something needed. So anyway, so that's how it started. So under Kokomo 24/7 Safety Cloud, that's our brand name. Underneath, there are three solutions. One is anonymous tip line reporting system. So for example, I don't know if Purdue already has it. School is our one of the targets. Student being able to say, hey, I heard that Daniel's gonna bring gun tomorrow. Not bad example, but that's anonymous tip line, right? So we have a mobile app, entire backend that disseminate the information and assign all that. That's the anonymous reporting system, ARS. We have that. And then second one is incident management system. Think of it as a student's incident, safety incidents, like a suicidal behavior to bullying to all that goes into this case management system. But one of the co-founder is AI guy. So what we did was actually put the AI. We analyzed the 10 years of data that we migrated for the one customer that we have. We built the model so that you can detect the patterns and then bubble up saying, hey, it seems like Daniel Lee might be doing another suicidal behavior. So we actually do a predictive analysis on top of just baseline case management system. That's our second product. Third one is a EOC called EOC management, Emergency Operations Centers. Should there be a tornado in Purdue campus, for example, or wildfire in California, oftentimes, or active shooter. In that case, it needs to notify the first responders. It has a different needs, right? So we have the functionality to help organizations like Purdue or corporations to handle emergencies. So those are the three products that we built for one single big customer. We actually built this while we were helping the client. So that's our core products we always have had. And then just fast forward, this back in February, we were like, as you can tell, I'm Korean American, right? I can read Korean, right? So I was reading Korean news, and then also European, how COVID was unfolding in Asia, China, Korea, Italy. I was like, oh my gosh, we have all the ingredients for potentially a solution for an organization to handle COVID cases. Think of it as a case. So we have a case management system, we have an ARS, we have a mobile app. So we just relabel a bunch of stuff and just wire the pieces that we already had. And that's how COVID-19 tracker was able to be launched within like 3 days over the weekend. I actually asked R&D to, could you do this, put this together and just label this differently. And then that's how COVID-19 tracker got born. And that was 2 months ago, and now Illinois State Police is using it. And now this week, last week, we closed 4 organizations. We are talking to major franchise, fast food restaurant, the luxury car brand. Those people are now looking into use COVID-19 tracker. So that's why I was literally rolling off of a call with right before this. But that's where, that's fast forward, that's today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us how the COVID-19 tracker works, and how the whole system works, Mr.
Yeah. So COVID-19 tracker, think of it as a case management system, as an organization. For example, let's just use a faculty of a Purdue, right? So those are employees. So the state and the local government is asking the private entities, say, hey, in order for you to reopen your business, you gotta do a tracking of your employees' self-screening. Every morning they have to fill out these 5 questions. That's so-called self-screening, daily self-screening. That's kind of new mandates that the public entities are pushing down to a private entities, saying, in order for you to return to work and open it up, you need to do this. So there's major, car manufacturer, franchises are looking to a solution. So we have that. So there's a mobile app. The employees or Purdue employee faculty members can fill out saying, hey, I don't have any symptom. I don't have no fever. And then it goes into the system. Should there be a person say, oh, I have a fever today, I'm coughing, I have a shortness of breath, and then it also reports to the system. So it's all compliance. You want, as an organization, you want to track those, right? And should there be a case, someone saying, oh, I'm sick, then you can actually create a case, presumptive case, into our case management system. And then it lives there forever. It's like a case. And then it lives a whole life cycle of the case, saying, I'm now sick, I'm getting tested. You'll be updating as an organization, HR person and whatnot, saying, hey, Daniel was sick yesterday, now he's waiting for the results. You change it of status. And then let's say I got confirmed. And then you change the status and then say, hey, now you gotta do a contact tracing potentially, meaning that I was coming to office, right? Let's say Potter building is being demolished, right? Let's say I visited WE building, MSW, physics building, right? So if I get confirmed, you will be interviewing me saying, hey, spit out, Daniel, where were you last 3 days? That's what contact tracing by definition is. So I will tell you, and then you'll be entering this system into our system. And then it actually maps out this location in chronologically so that you can actually juxtapose with other potential employees who were in these buildings and identify other people who were there. So this is a so-called manual contact tracing. So I don't want to confuse this with Google and Apple, who are confusing a lot of people. The Bluetooth GPS is a real time. So I'm not even getting there. In order to just do a basic contact tracing, you need a system to collect this information and potentially identify who are the potential contacts. And you gotta do a follow-up. You gotta list these contacts, and then you gotta follow, wait for 5 days, whether, you will, I met you 3 days ago, then, they will wait for, basically follow up on you saying, whether you develop any symptoms and whatnot. That's contact follow-up. That's what contact tracing is for. Contact tracing is not about tracking you. That's kind of what, again, kind of blaming Apple and Google and these people to make people confused about tracking versus contact tracing. Contact tracing is identifying those. However, on top of that, we can, of course, we have a mobile phone. If an organization wants to have their employee opt in and enable the GPS tracking, right? Then instead of someone interviewing me and typing in the location, now you actually have very granular information feeding into the system, and then you can do a better contact identification. Of course, we can do that, but a lot of people are not even understanding the baseline, what contact tracing is supposed to be. and all of the jumping and talking about mobile phone doing Bluetooth thing, that's just a fraction of what contact tracing is supposed to be. So I just come down a little bit on what we are going through, but so that's what our system can do. We provide the technology and the house to be able to collect those data, so-called single source of truth here, and then you can, that record lives in the system. So until I become okay, whole information about me, my case lives in the system. So a year later, what happened to Daniel? And then just open up, click, it prints out the whole report about me, what happened, whom I contacted, all that. That's the contact tracing, and that's the case management system. That's what COVID-19 tracker is. And of course, with that whole picture, you can imagine there are some mobile apps that actually integrates. We have all those things. It's just, that's just technology. But I think what's more important is what contact tracing and the case management system does. And that's, that's what COVID-19 tracker is.
Were there some privacy concerns with this product?
Oh, okay. So that was a very question that I was just talking right before this call. So privacy is, so there's a definition called PIIs, personally identifiable information. So basically, if just assume that if data gets leaked, can that data point who this data belong to? That's a PII. So we separate PII from the case management system. So even though it get leaked, they don't know it's Daniel Lee's record. The PII is double encrypted, separated from the system. So that's the one of the architecture. That's something you will learn, of course, from, again, enterprise. If you work for a big enterprise and learn to build the software securely, those are the things that you will learn. I'm not sure, colleges teach those stuff these days, so I'm just assuming. Anyway, so yeah, so PII, those are the privacy concerns. And then the tracking part is where a lot of people get eerie, saying, hey, you're gonna track me. But as I mentioned earlier, the tracking is not part of contact tracing. If should somebody wanna track, it's usually based on the opt-in. The person says, freely, track me, but in return, I want to get notified if should any places that I've been to, if there were any confirmed cases, notify me. That's opt-in basis. So most of our organizations, they don't do that. They don't want to do that. But technologically, it's possible, but not many people, or we have our customers, nobody does that.
So can you tell us a little bit more about how AI plays a role in your product?
So that's AI. So if you come to our website, and now we kind of we don't kind of advertise AI just because I think there's too much hype going on, and they're just too it's a in a way hype. I mean, I'm not saying if you are doing AI, you're hype. I'm not saying that. If if you're meeting 100 companies doing AI, really, what's really achievable? I don't know. I think I would say majority are not. Anyway, so that's why we don't advertise AI. AI is as good as the data, how much data you have, right? So our case is very unique because we had an anchor customer 2 years ago. That's how we built out this suicide and bullying, two major issues in K-12 in America. We actually migrated, we were able to access 9 years, 2 years ago, so 8 years of data of the incidents that happened for past 8 years. We were able to migrate, we were supposed to migrate that into a cloud solution. So we had processed the data. So we didn't use, there's no PII, but we just built a model. If you're an AI person, you will know what it means. There's no data about, Daniel Lee hitting, Mike Kim or something like that. It's about the pattern. Like if a student who used to get into a fight, bullying fight, and then next is usually the suicidal behavior. So we detected those stuff from the ingesting 8 years of data. So we built this model. So that's how we were able to say we can detect by predictive analysis. We can detect after a student behaving, getting into a fight, and then bullying and fight. Then next one is usually a suicidal behavior. So we bubbled that Daniel Lee name on the principal's face, saying you want to talk to him. And we know there's a study done that prevention by intervention. If somebody intervene and just come to me and say, hey, Daniel, are you okay these days? That alone towards the suicidal thoughts. There's a study for it. So we are kind of preaching that we, as a Kokomo, we are providing you, school administrator, the technology so that you can, these are names out of, 2,000 students, you don't remember everyone. These are the names, and then we are just trying to help so that you can talk to them so basically potentially thwarting another suicidal behavior or detecting bullying that no one is detecting. So for example, bullying is another one. Daniel Lee shows up here as a witness, another case, Daniel Lee shows up as a victim. And then another case, Daniel Lee shows up as a witness again, something like that. Then there's some connection. Why is Daniel Lee always involved in these fights, right? So there's a high chance he might be bullied, just couldn't report and whatnot. So that's another detection that we can do because we had that data. So that's what our bullying and suicidal the detection mechanism, how it works. And we highlight that during demos and potential customers, but we don't say that we are the AI company per se, because there are so many people who just claim that, they're AI startup and doing a lot of stuff. We don't want to, be in the same model. Yeah. So we come in from more of enterprise software, enterprise audience than, there are a lot of cool AI companies that does some crazy cool stuff with the crowdsourced data. Legit, I'm not challenging them. It's hard to out of 10 AI startups, it's hard to kind of imagine usable, real functioning AI. It will get better, but 2 years ago, it was a lot of hypes. So I kind of digressed.
It's okay. What are your plans for expanding your product? And is it ready to be used in other parts of the US or larger populations?
Yeah, so that's the part that, having a business is totally different world, and it's no longer technology. I mean, if W or anyone technical, geeks, I'm geek too, think that, so if you were to start a business, there's always a contention. Who's more important? If you were to sell, build a product, let's say AI company, cool technology. Without the technologists, you cannot build a product. Even so, technology is, I would say, 30%, 40% of the whole picture if you run a company. It's a sales and marketing operation. Without any of this, no matter what you have, even though you can save that person, if you cannot relay the message, I mean, it's common sense, but I learned so hard way that even though I acknowledge that marketing and sales are important, I think I had an inertia, internally thinking, I still think, without, software, without product, I mean, they cannot sell. They're just 20% of company, 30% of company. I would say 40% R&D, sales and marketing, another 40%, as important. And then, whatever, something like that. So the lesson that I learned, that running a business, selling a product is just And then to answer your question, the growing the company, and that's, you know, HR, that's operation, that's like being able to find the investor. I mean, as an engineer, I never learned that, how to do those. I'm just learning by drinking by fire hose. Again, I think that's an experience that you just have to go through. I mean, you cannot, if you become, as any student, if you want to become a founder, it's not something you can outsource. Many of the initial marketing, also you cannot rely on other people's coming up with marketing, because everything's in your head. You should be able to articulate. You should be able to create initial deck that explains what you think, and then need help to kind of refine it and, you know, make it more consumable by non-geeks. But you still have to do all those, and it's running a business and expanding and running the show, working with the people is more. I would say that's as important as your, you know, genius IP, you know, your product. And I'm learning it every single day. I'm not claiming I know everything, but I think we need to grow. So I actually experienced hard way from previous venture. I actually, up to 40 people I ran a program, company, because there was a single investor who invested and I run the show. But oh boy, you know, from a consultant out of Microsoft to running a company with 40 people under you, it's just, it's a totally different experience. I think that's the type of stuff that you learn from MBA. And I didn't go MBA, so I learned it by just hitting the ground, you know, head first. And from that, because of that experience, I was able to get Kokomo going faster. Otherwise, I would be making those mistakes that I did today. I don't know if I answered your question. Maybe I digressed.
Yeah, and I think that is such a, you know, such a philosophy. And I think I also see in your company that public safety experience and concerns that was always with you since the beginning. I think that must be, I don't know, playing a big role in, you know, growing the company. So I'm wondering what your philosophy is. The issue of, right, we talk about in Gwyn, and, you know, this past academic year, we talk a lot about mental wellness on campus.
Yep.
It's such a big issue. So what is your, yeah.
Wow. That's the, you know, when things were hard, you know, I was never a HR person. So when I had 40 people, like everybody's telling me different story, I'm like, I didn't know what to do. So philosophy is where it comes in, you know, when you're confused, what is the principle? And I wish I had a mentor who says, hey, you know, just go by this. You know, if someone is saying differently, just absorb it, but don't change the principle. Okay, so I didn't have one. Again, I guess maybe because I didn't go to MBA. MBA maybe teaches this. Anyway, so I learned to come up with a philosophy by try and error. So, you know, at the beginning, because I came from consulting company, you know, the demand. So I was kind of unhappy with the people. So I was very strict with like a technicality, meaning that if you cannot get things done, you go. You know, I don't want to deal with someone who cannot deliver. I was like that. And then depending on the culture and that, depending on, it's a human work. Company is a human work. It's not about the product software. It's like people around you. I learned hard way that you cannot do that to people. So my original philosophy was like, if you cannot get things done, then you are out. I learned to that's how I started, and then I learned a few things right now, I think my philosophy actually sounds just like what I have heard and what you might have heard. You know, companies about people. I hate to say these things because I heard this before, and everybody says this. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? But I, so at the same time, I don't want to say that, hey, this is the principle that I'm living by now. You adopt it. I don't think that applies either. You gotta go through this to become here. You just know, just keep that in mind. And yeah, so I, you know, the philosophy has kind of molded into something, but nowadays what I'm going after is it's about people. I mean, even the sales, even the operation, even the R&D, it's a, you cannot do it on your own. You have to depend on other people. So there you go. People is your company, people is your customer, people is your product. So that's what I go by these days. It will change, I guess. I mean, if I start running like a 200 people shop, you know, right now it's only a, you know, 9 people shop right now. But you know, I might say different things, but you know where I am, and that's you know, Daniel Lee Kokomo year 3 of me philosophy.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. So my next question is, how you mentioned a little bit earlier, you did a webinar with Purdue Foundry. Can you tell us a little bit about the role of Purdue Foundry and the Silicon Valley Boilermaker Innovation Group? Maybe you can speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, I met you know, another. He's a ex Intel exec, so a gentleman called Bruce. He's a mentor. He became a mentor. But the thing is, I got into this Nasdaq entrepreneur milestone maker accelerator or mentorship program. I got into it. Kokomo got into it, and he was one of the mentors. And then he. So basically, Kokomo was assigned to him, and then he realized I'm Purdue, that's how we clicked. But he was actually assigned mentor. However, because we connect so well, you know, ex Purdue meeting in the real world, he was like you know, helping me in, you know, I mean, he's retired, I think. So he's giving me a lot of advice about what he had seen in Silicon Valley. He lived Silicon Valley ever since Purdue, Purdue 80s, 70s, you know, what year I forgot. So he's giving me a lot of help on, you know, who we are. I mean, how I need to act today as a company, as a strategy, what I need to worry about. So definitely that's unknowns that I don't know, right? So he went through. So he's helping me all that. So that kind of a mentorship I never had before. I have a lot of colleagues who's, as I mentioned, helping the company and whatnot, but I never met a single person who, you know, helped me how to do this and or, you know, talk to. But I feel so fortunate to meet him, and that's how it all started. He connected me to a Purdue Research Foundation, and then it spread from there. Foundry and you, and you know, there's a nursing professor who wants to, a coordinator who wants to also do a, you know, Kokomo about the contact tracing, how it can be potentially used. So I'm also, I also offered our contact tracer for free to if we were to use in Purdue. I'd love to have it used by Purdue, and you know, so it's exciting. I mean, I thought, you know, even though I graduated Purdue and it's been ages, I never had a chance, official way of going back, reconnecting and giving back. And this is one of the ways. I mean, not one of the ways. This is the first time, and I'm super excited. You know, that's again the pain. I wouldn't say pain, but the memories of Purdue is like, I'm so happy to reconnect. I just wanted to wrap up that there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So our last question is, what message would you like to give to Purdue communities in this challenging time?
Okay. Wow, you didn't prepare me for that. So I think we all are going through the same thing, and I think the informed decision. If you see the video, we actually invited Dr. Dennis from Illinois State Police Medical Director. He actually mentioned that a couple of interesting facts. The point he made is that doctors never made or trained to be a leader. They always rely on a leader and providing a scientific information, right? So he also, starting from there, and he was giving a perspective saying that now it's like all of a sudden medical staff, the professionals are put on charge, like tell us what to do. And then that's what we have seen. On top of that, he actually pointed out second point, which is how important it is as an informed person, making informed decisions. There are a lot of disinformation or whatnot. Even the contact tracing alone, people are confused with the tracking app. It is not. Contact tracing, the terminology has been around, I would say 100 years. Ebola, HIV, that's what all this, the public health officials, they've been doing contact tracing forever. It's just all of a sudden, privacy and my liberty. It's not that. So, of course, the privacy and those are important. So I think informed decision. I think getting the education from Purdue and the community. I think we are, in a way, educated than per se average, out there. I think we have to be cognizant and be able to make sure the information science is communicated and understood. So I wanted to say that for anyone, and for Purdue, I heard President Purdue. Mitch Daniels, his decision to open the school. I think that's bold and great move, and shorten the time. See, if smart people are together, come up with a good plan like that. That's awesome. So I think, I cannot. Everybody has an opinion about the whole situation, but I just wanted to say that we should make decisions based on science and information.
Well, Mr. Lee, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing with us your work. Thank you for taking us back to, your time. Just thank you for everything that, the story that you presented us with today.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. And also as I said, I'm Chicago based, 30 years, and I can imagine every signals in my head with eyes closed, meaning every street. I know Chicago is my home. So whoever, comes to Chicago and, have a meal, coffee and whatnot, just ping me. Love to meet Purdue people. It'll be, again, it is more than honor. I'm so honored to be, interviewed and then meet you.
Yes, and vice versa. We would love for you to come back and visit us and visit the center.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, have a good day. I will
Thank
pause
you.
the recording right now.